everyone. Welcome back to Ghosted, Gagged, and Gay, where we decode queer love, heartbreak, and all the messy magic in between. I'm Lonay, your go-to relationship coach and rapid transformational therapy practitioner, helping our beloved rainbow people uncover the subconscious stories holding their hearts hostage. If you've been wondering why your love life keeps replaying the same painful patterns, it's not the apps, it's not the universe, it's your inner programming. And good news, we can change that. Through my Radiant Hearts Transformation program, I guide queer souls toward healing, clarity, and magnetic love that actually feels like home. So for today, pour your tea, sip your truth, and let's get ready because today's story is going really deep. Today's guest is someone who brings both science and soul to the conversation around queer intimacy. Dr. Stephen Davidson is a clinical sexologist based in Florida with over 30 years of experience supporting individuals, couples, and even throuples in building emotionally honest and sexually fulfilling relationships. He's the author of Sexual Integrity, Finding the Courage to Be Yourself, and the host of the YouTube channel, The Sexual Integrity Coach. Stephen helps people uncover the deeper truth behind their desires, dismantle shame, and embrace their full erotic identity with courage. And today we're diving into a conversation that gets to the heart of what it really means to bring your whole self, including your kinks, quirks, and cravings, into love. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Lene. I appreciate you having me on your show.
I'm glad that you're here and thank you for being here as well. So let's start with this kind of powerful idea from your work and quoting you. Sexual integrity is about the true integration of your sexual identity. Can you please walk us through what that looks like in practice for someone who has spent years suppressing or fragmenting parts of themselves?
Absolutely. And I wrote the book and titled it Sexual Integrity because I had worked with so many people who had fragmented their sexuality as though it was not a part of who they are. And they would enter relationships with people, keeping sexual secrets, not being transparent about what they liked or what they enjoyed sexually. And then at some point, that information becomes known and it creates conflict in relationships. So I coach people how to be more honest, to be more transparent, not just with everybody else in the world, but especially with themselves, and how to lean into those things that you enjoy and those things that you know to be true about your sexual identity, as opposed to trying to oppress them.
Yeah, I can actually very relate to that. Like I remember before coming out, like now looking back, I'm very mesmerized by the fact that when before coming out, I kind of like fragmented this part of me, like locked it somewhere in my mind. And I was in complete denial, even though, like, for example, when I'm watching porn or having my me time in the bedroom, like it was always something gay. But then, like, before and after, it's like this, like, I was really fragmenting this part of myself like so much that I also believed fully that no, I'm not gay.
Right.
So I can totally relate to that. And yeah, like what do you have what is a way to kind of realize that you're fragmented? Because sometimes like you're in denial so much that you're not even aware that you're doing this. Like what are some signs or some things to be aware of to kind of know like, okay, maybe I'm fragmenting some parts of me.
Right. Well, first, the fragmentation is very destructive to our mental health, our overall mental health in life. because we're moving through the world in a way where we've created this false self that comes out of the bedroom and goes out into the rest of the world, but it's not who we know we truly are. And breaking the denial is one of the most challenging parts. And sometimes that denial gets shattered because we have a crisis out in the real world where someone discovers a glimpse of who we really are. And then we have to deal with that reality of someone saw us. Now we have to explain it. And in doing that, that sometimes is the catalyst for people beginning to try to understand it for themselves. So I think it begins with education.
Okay.
Even if you are in your bedroom watching porn and having your me time, you might not think of pornography as sex education, but you are learning a lot from watching that. And we all gravitate towards certain kinds of scenes that we want to see. And those scenes represent something about ourselves. So, and there are other ways that we can become educated other than pornography. There are lots of books out there, mine being one that I would really recommend. There are lots of YouTube channels out there that talk about sexuality and relationships. So I think it begins with education. And the more you realize that you're not alone in this, the more accepting you become of yourself. And then you got to get out and find your community.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And especially I think when it comes to fetishes, right? Like, so you've said that fetishes are the props and kinks are the plot, also quoting you, and that we all play characters in our own erotic psychodramas. So what can these scripts that we, in like experience or we live teach us about our deeper emotional needs?
Well, fetishes are about our erotic association with objects. And it's going to be the things like um, leather boots, harnesses. It might be underwear. It could even be parts of the body like feet. So I say those are the props because they are about the objects. And kink is about creating scenes. In this scenario, here's what I want. And sometimes we have a script. There's certain words we want people to say. There's certain ways we want them to talk to us. We have a role that we want to play, and it might be dominant, submissive, daddy, boy, master, slave, or any combination of that. And when we look a little deeper into those uh, kinks, we find that there are common themes that come up around control, desire, love, acceptance. And so when I'm working with clients who are trying to embrace their kink, I want them to understand what is the underlying goal that you're trying to fulfill here. What makes this satisfying? Because a lot of our kinks and fetishes don't include any genital stimulation. Being tied up, being flogged, being having people say certain words to you. It's not about genital stimulation. So it's psychological stimulation. And I think it's important that people understand what they are getting from that so that they can better integrate that into their life.
Wow, that's like, yeah, that's very insightful. Thank you. It really kind of like it like puts a different light on the whole like kinks and fetishes as well. And yeah, like you're right. There's no genital stimulation when it comes to that. So yeah, it's that you're right. Like I maybe I need to also sit down for a moment with myself and analyze my own kinks. Um, so yeah, like so basically when do you know so like do you feel that sometimes like from your experience, is it sometimes that we follow a certain kind of kink because we are missing something, and then when that something is fulfilled, then we let go, or are kinks completely irrelevant to that kind of scenario?
I think they are very relevant.
Yeah.
So we don't always know where kinks and fetishes develop. There's not a whole lot of research on the genesis of kinks and fetishes. Some of the research indicates that about 50% of the time we can identify where a kink or a fetish developed, and it's usually in childhood or very early adolescence.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes people come to kink later in their life, but it's because they've just come to this self awareness later in their life. The denial has broken, they're giving themselves permission, but it may have been something that's always existed there in the subconscious or has existed at least consciously in their fantasy. I think there is purpose to our kinks, and sometimes we can move through them to the other side of them, and they don't have the same power in our life. They don't carry the same level of intensity in our life because we are resolving some of the things that we're trying to work through. But we create these little mini psychodramas in all areas of our life. It's not just about sexuality. Sometimes people they skydive, they jump out of airplanes because they have fear in their life and they're trying to overcome that fear. And so we psychologically have an innate and instinctive understanding of what it is we need to be able to get through that challenge and move to the next level in our life. And I'm just working with the sexy part of this to help people better understand that area of their life.
Yeah, and like so it must be some kind of um like internalized shame, like since we like if the research is saying, or if it's proven, or maybe not yet, but if it's suggesting that we develop these kind of kinks and fetishes like in our primitive years maybe, um then maybe like we are suppressing them. And does it like usually involve internalized shame around like desires?
Yes, it does often involve shame, but it's not shame about the desire so
Okay.
much. It is shame about my sense of not having power in my life, not having control in my life, not being loved, not behaving the way that I should behave. So when I work with people around kinks and fetishes, like I said, they often develop in childhood or early adolescence
Mm-hmm.
when we don't have a good understanding for sexuality anyway. And when we can identify the origin, it is most often that they are not connected with anything sexual. It's an interaction with a parent. It's a relationship with their peers in school, and somehow it gets associated with their sexuality while they're also going through certain phases of sexual development. And there's this intertwine, this overlap. And I don't know what it's like there in Germany, but here in the US, we are raised to have a tremendous amount of shame about our sexuality, regardless of your gender identity or your sexual orientation.
Yeah, that is quite sad. I think it's a common thing, like almost everywhere. So how can someone start, the journey of moving from this like secrecy and suppression to like self-acceptance, especially in relationships?
I think it's good, again, to find your community. Sometimes I phrase it finding your tribe, finding other people who share your interest and talking with those people. In most parts of the world, there are organizations, and some of those are formal organizations that have a meeting space, and some of those are informal groups where people get together and talk. And it's wonderful that we can do that in a global online community now in a way that People who are very isolated in rural parts of the world were not able to do that previously. And
Okay.
and that's how you discover I'm not really alone in this. There are other people who think like I do, who have the same fantasies that I do, the same desires that I do. And if I could meet those people, then we could explore that together. And we're naturally going to feel more accepted, more loved, more have a greater sense of belonging when we are around people who understand us.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's always like, I mean, as human beings, we always like we always crave belonging, our sense of belonging, and then when we have this sensation, then we flourish, and then we start exploring the parts of ourselves that are being suppressed. I mean, depending on the community you're belonging to, obviously, but if it's like a community that really accepts you for who you are and you're very comfortable, or it makes you feel that you're comfortable in your own skin, or at least supports that feeling, then more likely than not, we start like accepting parts of ourselves we never thought we had, or part of ourselves we never thought we would even come to peace, or yeah, come to peace with these parts of ourselves.
Right.
So let's now move like to, someone who discovered their hidden parts and they came into terms with them, uh and they want to be honest. Like they meet somebody and they really want to be honest about their sexuality. So what does it look like to bring sexual honesty into dating early on without scaring someone away? So like where's like the line between transparency and oversharing?
Well, if you scare someone away, it's better to scare them away on the first date than it is 2 years into the relationship. It's going to be a lot more painful and messy for everybody if it's 2 years in before you are transparent and honest. And, on that first date, we are really just looking for things that we have in common with other people. And some people will jump right in. They'll be very comfortable talking about sex on the first date. Other people, it's a little more private for them and they're not as comfortable doing that. But it depends on where you meet that person. And if you're meeting them in a group that's already related to sexuality and embracing kinks and fetishes, then there's going to be some safety built in there already for that. If you're not, then you can ease into the subject about, I think we should talk about sex and we should talk about our different sexual interests because I'm a sexual person. I'm guessing you're a sexual person. And this is going to be an important part of our relationship. I think you can also say things like, I am working on self acceptance in my life. Transparency and honesty are very important to me, and I'm looking for a relationship where I can truly be myself. These are things that you can say on that first date that are honest and that will allow you to gauge where is the other person with that. Are they excited to talk about that, or do you find that they are pulling back, they are inhibited, maybe they're hiding aspects of themselves? Um, so I don't think we should be fearful of jumping into the subject early on. I think it's actually best if we do that.
Yeah, I actually also think it's always the better way to be upfront, and because you might save yourself a lot of wasted time, a lot of drama, by just being honest, being who you are from the first date onwards. So yeah, but thank you for sharing that. It's really, because sometimes it's hard to really identify whether you're being like you're oversharing or you're just being yourself. And this is like a good reminder that, just be yourself as loud as you want to be, and then the rest will be in alignment with who you are, basically. Um, so now I want you to like maybe if you would like to share, something that you do, like about your program, like how you help people, and maybe give us like an example of like one story kind of sexual healing that deeply moved you, like maybe from someone who went from deep shame to deep connection. So like how you helped with that, like how did you manage to help, whether it's a couple or individuals or throuple, to like break through basically.
Yes. And so my book is full of stories, scenarios of different people from different backgrounds who had some challenge that they were trying to face in their life related to their sexuality. So if people are interested in hearing those stories, there's lots of stories in that book. Sometimes when people come to me, I am their first point of contact for talking about these things, but most often not. Often they have had many points of contact in their life. And sadly, here in the US, most therapists are not trained to deal with the subject of sexuality. Neither are physicians, nurses. Most healthcare providers are not comfortable with the subject. And so, sex therapists, clinical sexologists are a group of health professionals who do have specific training in sexuality and are a little more comfortable with the subject. An example that comes to mind for me is a man that I met who was in his 50s. And for him, he had been suppressing his attraction to men his entire life. He had married, he had a couple of children. He had talked with his pastor about this, and they defined it as a spiritual crisis. And so he prayed more. He got more involved in his church, but it did not change his sexual attraction to men. He went to a therapist who diagnosed him as a sex addict because
Wow.
he was looking at pornography. And the therapist said, well, given that you're married and you have children, you're obviously not gay because don't gay people don't have children, which you and I know is a complete myth.
Whoa.
Uh, and so, we don't want you to leave your wife. And so, I think probably what we're dealing with here is a sexual addiction. And so he went to sex addict groups. And for many years, he identified as a sex addict because he looked at pornography and he had these fantasies that he couldn't let go of. And then years down the road, because there was no intimacy in his relationship with his wife, one day she just said, I don't want to do this anymore. We've been struggling with this our entire marriage. I'm going to file for divorce. I'm going to leave. And I really think you need to just accept who you are. And so by the time he came to me, he had seen several therapists. He'd been in self help groups. But ultimately, it was his wife saying, I'm going to do what's right for me, that then gave him permission in his 50s to do what was right for him. And when he came to me, he said, now I've got to deal with self acceptance. I've got to start really working on myself. And I can't keep pushing this away anymore by calling it a spiritual crisis, calling it a sex addiction. I've got to call it what it is. I'm a gay man and I need to start dealing with that. And so my work with him was about him grieving all the years of his life that he lost, him working through the anger of reaching out to people for help, and then uh, really just supporting him in oppressing the truth, denying the truth, repressing his reality, and helping him begin to get out in the world in his 50s and discover his sexuality in a way that he should have been able to do in his 20s. And, I am aware of that man in the world today.
Hmm.
Um, he is no longer my client, but he is very active in the LGBT community today as an older man. and also so happy with himself that he made that journey, he made that change.
Wow, that's a very inspiring story. I mean, it's partially sad, like how even professionals were gaslighting him into saying like, "Oh, you're a sex addict," and so on. That is very sad part. Like they didn't even question whether he might be actually gay or not, and they just basically they were very biased in their opinions, even as professionals, which shouldn't be the case. But yeah, thank you for sharing. And it's good. I mean, it's never too late, right, to embrace who you are. So, through your platform, like the Sexual Integrity Coach, what message are you most passionate about getting across, especially to queer people?
That you are okay as you are, to accept yourself. And the other challenge that I think queer people have is because by the time we come to that self acceptance, and it doesn't matter if we do that in our 50s or we're doing it in our 20s, um, to be a queer person, whether it's LG, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, whatever your unique aspect of your sexuality is, we all grow up in a world knowing that we are not the chosen. We exist in the margins. We are an outlier, and we have to work extra hard to be celebrated, accepted, loved, understood. The world as a whole is not on our side. And sometimes people cope with that with problematic behaviors, with uh, trauma in their life that goes unhealed, with different kinds of addiction to substances. And in my work with queer people, I find a lot of very bright and wonderful, talented people who hide their strengths, and they get caught up in the trauma of being different, and they cannot really celebrate the rest of their identity, which is again about integration. Let's integrate your intellect. Let's integrate your talents. Let's help you become a complete and whole person. And sometimes they are at risk of working so much on their queerness that that becomes all of their identity. And so I find myself working with people who come out early in life, helping them embrace the parts of them that are not just about being queer, but are about being a human being. So don't lose sight of the whole picture.
Thank you. That was a very powerful statement. And yeah, thank you again. Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up this episode?
I don't think so. I think, your podcast is about people embracing who they are and celebrating who they are. And I think that is a very important message. It's also my message, too. It's why the subtitle of this book is Finding the Courage to Be Yourself. It takes a lot of courage to come out of denial, to accept yourself, and to let the rest of the world see you as you are.
Yeah, it's like it can be very simple and very complex at the same time to like
Right.
finding and accepting who you are. So thank you very much, Dr. Stephen, and I will add the links to your book or books, and also to your YouTube and your website. Any links that are necessary if people want to find out more about you and reach out to you. What is the best way to reach out to you?
To reach out through my website, which
Okay.
is sexualintegritycoach.com.
Okay.
That website has ways to contact me. It also has links to my books. There's a link to the YouTube channel. So it's a place where you could find all of those connections on one site.
Okay, perfect. Then yeah, I will add the link. And for anybody who is listening to this and interested in knowing more, please visit Dr. Stephen's website and yeah, maybe explore your own sexuality. And yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Stephen, for being here today. I really appreciate that and for sharing all these very, very informative and educational insights that you gave us, like me especially, and also the audience. And yeah, for everybody who's listening, thank you so much for being here again and listening to my podcast. And if you have any story that you would like to share from your love life or any like if you come from a background where you feel it can help many people by sharing your story or your background, it can be something funny, just making people laugh. Please contact me, book a call, and let's have you be a guest on my show for the next episode. And until then, please be kind to your heart, to yourself, and to each other, and let's keep everything queer. Thank you very much. Bye bye.